All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. First of all, happy International Day of Education. I think that is very important to celebrate, right? Education is important. Education transforms lives. Education is the most powerful weapon with which we can use to change the world. And I strongly believe that. And many times you've heard me say, tell my story and, just to reiterate the fact that education is important. I also want to thank you, the Fresh Look Africa, for this invitation. I'm very, very excited about it. I'm thankful. It's a privilege to always meet and, have these conversations around education. And I love the thing which is recovering and revitalizing education. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to all the participants and to all the organizers of this fresh, since it's this fresh approach of looking at things. So I'll go right on. I cannot attempt to speak about leadership in 45 minutes, right? So what I'm going to do is I have prepared a paper. So I'm just going to read the paper because leadership is my life's work. So you can imagine you telling me to come and speak about it in a couple of minutes. So what is leadership? Leadership is typically this. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Let me check that.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Leadership is typically described as a set of personal characteristics such as charisma, bravery, and strength. Many perceive someone as a natural leader because he or she is compelling, confident, and amiable. Similarly, the instruments of power and how one uses one's authority are often mixed up with leadership, whether the person is participatory, autocratic, or uses softer approaches of influence and persuasion is usually described as leadership. Now, a person's characteristics, right, very powerful. Strengths may indeed be key sources of authority in people's eyes. And each instrument of power and influence has its place and potential good use, but they must not be confused to mean leadership. They must not be confused to mean leadership. I can say that a third time. They must not be confused to mean leadership. A person's characteristics, right, and tools of influence must never be confused to mean leadership. So what then is leadership? Leadership must not be anchored on personal strengths and tools of power, but on the work that needs to be done. And that's where many of us get it wrong. That is where we get it wrong, right? Leadership must be anchored on what you do with your abilities, with your strengths, with your personality, with your resources, with your tools of authority, your influence, your persuasion, and your power. What do you get done? That's what leadership is. One could have all the power, the position, the personality, and you see that playing all over Africa, including Nigeria, where you have people in position, people who have power and people who have excellent personality, and they get nothing done. They get nothing done. A carpenter with good hands and tools is not a carpenter until he or she takes those tools and builds something fabulous with it. So that's where you say that is a carpenter. That is when you say this person is a carpenter. This person is an architect. This when people use what they have to get something done. So leadership is a practice, the practice of mobilizing people to tackle challenges, the practice of mobilizing people to tackle challenges, framing the key questions and creating the conditions to help people make progress. So where there's no progress, there can't be leadership. So we cannot say that there's leadership where there is no progress. I hope somebody is getting that today. We cannot say that
yes, we're here.
In a place where there is no progress. Again, these are the issues that we are facing in Nigeria because many of us do not understand what leadership is. We do not understand what leadership is. The practice of mobilizing people to get things done. Now, both the mundane everyday tasks that require already existing technical abilities, right, and expertise, and the tough and groundbreaking adaptive challenges and tasks not clearly defined and solvable by existing know-how, and requiring people to reach, to stretch beyond what they know, what they think, what they have experienced, to discover new innovations that enable new capabilities and increase capacity for success. That is what leadership is. That is what leadership is, right? Where you are mobilizing people to get things done. The mundane everyday task, the everyday task, very important, right? And then those challenging, groundbreaking tasks as well, that at the end of the day ensures that all of us are increasing our capacity to success, and we're getting things done. And I hope we're all thinking about what leadership is, again, especially in Africa. Now let's think of historic great leaders: Martin Luther King, Dalai Lama, Nelson Mandela. They reached beyond the everyday. They identify issues, problems, challenges, and they reached beyond, right, to get things done, to make things happen. That's why we remember them. That is why they're important. That's why we have labeled them leaders. Not because they were in position or they were charismatic or they were compelling, but because they made things happen. Right? They questioned the status quo. They imagined a better future, a better world. They mobilized people and they took action. Now think of leaders of our time, because many times when we're talking about leadership, we just talk about the old people, but there are so many leaders in our time now making great things happen. Let's think of Pope Francis, the current spiritual leader of the Roman Catholic Church. Let's think of Angela Merkel, right? Germany's chancellor and leader of the European Union, and her actions to lead Europe out of poverty. Let's think of, can you hear me? Are you still there?
Yes, we can. But we can't see you.
You can't see me? Can you
No.
see me? All right. Hang on. All right. Now.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Excellent. Okay, so let's think of Aung San Suu Kyi, Nobel Peace Prize winner, who gave up her freedom and a life with her family in Britain to protest military rule in Burma. Let's think of Bono, the lead singer of U2, who helped persuade global leaders to write out debts owed by the poorest countries and encourage the Bush administration and others to vastly increase AIDS relief. Let's think of Geoffrey Canada, the CEO of Harlem's Children's Zone, who launched an experimental project to reach all kids in a 24-block zone of New York City and give them education, social help, and medical help. Think of Malala, think of Christine Lagarde, think of Jack Ma, think of Jeff Bezos, think of Ken Chenot, and even in our Nigeria, think of someone like Otto or Orandam, right, and the Slum to School. And there's so many people like that, leaders of our time who are making things happen. But they are all examples of normal people like you and I who dare to think, act, and be different to make a world a better place, to make the world a better place. Now, leadership is indeed not about titles, seniority, position, and looks. It is the ability to use our influence, our actions, our resources, our personality, everything we have got to elevate others, put them on their path to greatness, and get extraordinary achievement from ordinary people. Now, to recover and revitalize the education system in Africa, which is the theme for this conference. We need people who will dare to think differently, act differently, and be different. We need people who will act and inspire others to do the same. We need people who will dare to achieve the extraordinary and influence others to do the same. We need people who know the way, not only know the way, but go the way, not only go the way, but also show others the way. To recover and revitalize the education system in Africa, we need real hardcore leadership at all levels. It is time for educators across Africa to put our money where our mouth is, so that we can what we very much long for, what we hope for, what we seek with all our hearts for our education system, our schools, our teachers, our students, and their families become reality in our own lifetime. Paraphrasing Robert Baden-Powell, all educators must be intentional about committed to taking steps necessary to leave the education system in Africa better than when we found it. We must be committed to recovering. We must be committed to revitalizing. Now, the question you're going to ask is how? We are going to do it the way all leaders have done it in the past. The great leaders that I've mentioned, we're going to do it just like they are role models to us. So we're just going to follow in their footsteps. We're going to use their blueprint, and we're going to get things done. The first thing we're going to need to do is to believe and envision. To believe and envision. As a man thinketh, so is he. That's one of my favorite things to say. We need to banish the I am just a teacher, I am just an educator mindset. And we need to believe that we matter. We need to believe that we are important. We need to believe that what we do counts and we can make change happen. Educators play an important role in helping children unfold, blossom, and discover their true capabilities as they journey to becoming responsible, fulfilled, and productive citizens of any community or nation. The role of a good teacher, the impact of a good teacher lasts a lifetime. You can ask the Google brothers. Now, develop empowering mindsets. We must be positive. We must develop the abundance mindset. We must be resourceful. We must collaborate. We must be change agents. We must tune our minds to the place of positivity. We must acknowledge the fact that we are a leader. We are a leader. Every teacher is a leader because teaching itself is a vocation requiring everyday acts of leadership, courage, a clear vision about what matters, a strong relationship with others, and resistance to bureaucracy that grounds educators. Every day as you teach, every day as you educate, you are practicing leadership. You are a leader. So let nobody tell you that you are simply a teacher, or you are just a teacher, or you are only a teacher. You are a leader. And the next is that we must envision the African education system of our dreams. We must envision it. We must live it. We must imagine it in our brains. We must imagine it in our minds. We must see it. We must see it. We must see the education system that is recovered and revitalized. We must envision our schools, our teachers, our students, what they would be like in a recovered and revitalized education system. What a compelling vision that is. And we must put it, it must be at the top of our minds all the time. The next thing that we must do is that we must start where we are. Starting strong, starting simple, then we grow from there. It all begins with each individual educator. Because we want to change Africa, but guess what? Africa is made up of countries, is made up of states, is made up of localities, is made up of schools, is made up of classrooms, is made up of educators like you and I, and learners. So little drops of water makes the mighty ocean. It is individuals that will come together, that would arise from where we are, come together to form a collective. Africa is made up of a collective of individuals. So it starts with you and it starts with I. And there are 4 levels of leading as an educator. And again, going with the concept of starting with you and starting where you are, the first thing is self-leadership. Self-leadership. Starting with you. You cannot fill others from an empty cup. Self-discovery, self-acceptance, self-management, and self-growth are the aspects of self-leadership that you and I must commit to unpacking and developing. We must undergo a personal SWOT analysis. We must outpour our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and the threats that concern us personally, and we must outline them, outpour them and put them where we can see them. And we must complete a professional balance sheet that talks about your assets, that talks about the liabilities, and talks about the steps you need to take to bridge equity. Create a personal development plan from all the information that you get from both your SWOT analysis and your professional balance sheet, right? And you master, like Lao Tzu says, that mastering strength is, mastering others is strength, but mastering self is true power. So if we are going to revitalize, if we are going to recover the education system in Africa, we must embrace leadership. And the first place to start is self-leadership. The next, again, is leading from our classrooms. Because you see, that's where the magic begins. That is where we have been called to make the magic happen, right? So the 4 dimensions of powerful classroom-based leadership: teachers leading by teaching well, teachers collaborating with others, teachers leading through inquiry, asking questions, and teachers developing partnerships. Those are the 4 dimensions of leading from the classroom. Teachers who lead well from the classroom bring students to the top of the academic mountain. And that is where all of us must want to see our children, the top of the academic mountains. And it starts from leading in our classrooms exceptionally well, so that all the children in Africa, right, are at the top of the academic mountains. And it starts from what we do as teachers in our classrooms. Now, the 3rd part of it is leading beyond the classroom. Leading beyond the classroom. So today, leadership roles have begun to emerge and promise real opportunities for educators to impact educational change beyond the classroom without necessarily leaving the classroom, right? Educators are now serving as research colleagues. They are working as advisor mentors to new teachers and facilitating professional development activities as master teachers. Educators also act as members of school-based leadership teams, instructional support teams, and leaders of change efforts in their schools, outside and beyond their classrooms. Again, let me take you back to the analogy that I gave you, that if indeed we want to recover and revitalize education system in Africa, it starts from the little circle of you and self-leadership. And it goes beyond you to what the magic you are able to make happen in your classroom, where the children are. Then it goes beyond that to the magic you can make happen, right, beyond your classroom, where you are leading beyond the classroom as either a master teacher, as either someone who is mentoring and coaching and supporting other teachers, right? So this is what we are talking about. That is the framework that teachers need to begin to embrace if they are thinking of recovering and revitalizing the education sector or system in Africa, right? And again, teachers are, educators are forging a number of new and unique leadership roles through their own initiative by developing and implementing programs they personally believe will result in positive change. Again, give yourself a chance to be significant. That is something that we say in the Right Teacher Academy. Give yourself a chance to be significant, right? By having been passionate about a niche or a part or an area, right, of education and developing a program. For example, I spoke up earlier about Otto and the slum to school, right? Be passionate about deciding, okay, this is the area that I'm passionate about, and then you pick that up and create initiatives and programs, right, that you believe will result in positive change. Leadership in schools, means holding fast to a vision of democratic learning communities and taking action to disrupt inequity and create real opportunities for students, families, and communities and nations at large. I hope we're all still here. I hope you are with me. If you are with me, just say I don't know. I think it's the webinar, so you might not be able to say it, but
we're here. We're here.
Right now, I was describing a framework, right? Self-leadership, embracing self-leadership, embracing leadership in the classroom, embracing leadership beyond the classroom, and the fourth one is embracing leadership in the community. Embracing leadership in the community. And this involves teachers going beyond the confines of their schools, beyond the confines of their classrooms, to get involved in education activities and projects that affect the wider society, not just the ones that affect their classrooms or their schools, but the ones that affect the wider society. And they get involved in the education sector, in the community, in the state, in the country, on the continent, and act to make positive change happen. So you look, you are observant, you look and see, right? The Bible says you look up and you see. So you look up and you see, and you observe the issues that are in the education system in your community, right? And then you take action. Now, the first thing that we do when we are leading the community is that we join professional networks and groups. So I assume that the Fresh Look Africa is a professional network, right, that you can join, and they are doing great things already, right? And when you are in that group, you are active. You are active. You are not a silent participant. You are active. You empower others, you share, and you contribute. Number two is that you study the education system in your locality, in your community, in your state, in your nation, in Africa, right? You read, you learn, you watch, you ask questions, you listen, you review, and you analyze the information that you are getting. And the reason why we are studying the education system is to get what the issues are. You cannot know what the issues are if you are not intentional about going to look for the issues, right? The challenges, the gaps, right? The gaps, the issues, the problems. You are intentional about going out there beyond your school, going into the wider community and saying, what are the problems? What are the issues, right? Now, the next thing is that you read about education reformers in the world, like E.D. Erskine, Bobby Jindal, Cheryl Lowe, Jason Bernal, Reed Hastings, Wendy Kopp of the Teach for All, right? Michael Bloomberg, Salma Khan of the Khan Academy, and others. So read about education reformers. You need to read about education reformers. You need to, you need to get into their brain. They need to be your mentor I know that the only thing is not mentorship is not only about meeting people one by one. If I read your biography, right, and your life story, I'll be mentored by you, right? I follow you on social media and all those other things that we know to do. Now, the fourth one is that you engage in elevated conversations. You engage in elevated conversations with others, both in and outside the education system, to gain deeper understanding, perspective, and insights again into the situation, the problems, the gaps that exist, and possible solutions. You engage in elevated conversations. You cannot change something that you have not analyzed thoroughly. You cannot change something that you do not have insight and understanding about, right? And then the fifth thing is that you articulate and clearly communicate your vision, your mission, your goals, and action steps for the better education system that you see, or the better education system that you want, for the recovered and revitalized education system that we all seek. You speak up. You speak up. You speak up. You call others to action. You use media to communicate your strong convictions about the reform of the education system. You persuade people, you inspire people, you use media, social media, traditional media to share your message to the world. You must speak up. You must speak up. You must share. You must let people know what exactly is happening and what are the things that can be the possible solutions to what it is that is happening. The sixth thing is that you are a role model. You act as a role model that continues to inspire others to take action by taking action. Again, I'm using local people, so I would use the Teach for Nigeria people. I will use Slum to School. I'll use Learn as I Teach Foundation as well. And you know, these are communities or your actions that have inspired people to take action of their own. I know a lot of people who have met, reach out to me to say, oh, I love what you are doing with Learn as I Teach. Can I be part of it? I love what you are doing with Learn as I Teach. Can I do something similar? I would like to do something similar. So you become a role model. Your actions must inspire others to take action. And remember that this is not about you or about your own personal aggrandizement. This is about the education system that we need, the education system that we seek, the education system that we must leave for our children and their children. This is what it's about. It's bigger than you. It is bigger, bigger, bigger than you. Now, the next thing is that they form or join coalitions for change. People who engage their problem-solving skills, people who innovate and create and review their innovation and their creation to make it better. People who are courageous, prepared to swim upwards. People who are bold and prepared to take risks and persist, even in the face of adversity. People who actually do something. People who do something. Going back to my description and my definition of leadership, people who make things happen. People who make things happen. We are tired of mouth service. We are tired of people who say, and do nothing. If indeed we are going to recover and revitalize the education system in Africa, making it a system that was better than the one that we inherited or we met, then we must take action. It is less about what we say and know and think, and all about what we make happen. People who do something, show others how to get it done, and support them as they get it done. So those are the 7 areas when you are thinking of leading the 4th cycle, which is leading beyond your classroom, beyond your school, and leading change in the education system and the community and nation at large. Now, as I round up, I need to explain to you that Embracing leadership is a quest to recover and revitalize the education system. Embracing leadership in the quest to recover and revitalize the education system isn't a choice. Isn't a choice for educators. It is a must, is a mandate, and is a mantle that we must carry. It is a mantle that we must receive. Embracing leadership, it is a calling. It is not something that you want to do. And many times the first thing I ask people when they get in, when they are in my space is education something you want to do, or are you forced into it? Or is leadership something that you want to do, or you are forced into it? We are tired. We do not need people who are in the education sector or the education system and are not for us, are not embracing leadership. They are not embracing the education sector. They are not embracing the education system. If you are in the education system, embracing leadership is a mantle, it is a mandate. It is a mandate. It's not something that you need to think about or something that it is a man, and you'll be asked. I tell people that you'll be asked. Many times you don't know what's going to happen when we go to heaven, but I tell you that God is going to ask you, what did you do with what the work I put in your hands? Because the work God puts in our hands is education. It is education. I'm assuming that if you are here, you are an educator, and what God has put in your hands is education. When God was making Adam, he gave him work. It is important. Before he gave him a spouse or a mate, he gave him work. So God is going to ask us, what did you do with the work that I gave you to do? Right? And Africa is waiting for educators to arise, to embrace their leadership mandate and make Africa's education system one of the best in the world. I can assure you that if every one of us as educators embraced real leadership, real hardcore leadership, and that is why I took my time to explain what leadership is and is not. If we took our time and we are committed to embracing real hardcore leadership, every one of us, nobody left behind, nobody left. Every one of us doing that, the education system will change person per person, classroom by classroom, schools per schools, and community by community, and everything comes together to make a recovered and revitalized education system in Africa. So we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to the children, born and unborn, and their families, we owe it to our motherland, and we owe it to God to embrace leadership in the recovery and revitalization of the education system in Africa. Thank you very much. That is all from me.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Abimbola. Thank you very much for that wonderful session. Thank you for breaking it down how you did. And I'm sure that all the participants have a better understanding on what leadership is about. Please, if you have questions for Dr. Abimbola, please drop them in the Q&A section and we'll take them in a few minutes. But I have a question of my own. So as an educator, how, you touched on it a bit, but I want you to probably break it down some more and give practical steps and ways to overcome it. Talking about the imposter syndrome. Now, as an educator, I find a gap somewhere that needs filling. I need, to round up people together so that we can get work done. I want to put myself out there and lead people to get this thing done. But then there's that case of imposter syndrome. Can I do it? Do I think that I should be doing this? I'm an educator and all of that. What are some practical ways that you can overcome that as an educator?
I think the first and most important thing is, as a man thinketh, so is he. So it starts with your mind. I ask people, why do you think that you are not good enough, or you should not do, or you should not be part and parcel of the people who are making things happen, right? So one thing that I do, or that has helped me, number one, is I have great people around me, people who are also doing great things, right? People who are making great things happen, and they are my clique, right? They are my friends. So there's a solid system of corporate motivation and corporate inspiration, where you are actually working with, because that happens in schools a lot, where you are doing something and someone comes and says, why are you doing it? For what reason? Are you the one, So you need to be intentional about the people that surround you, right? And the voices that you are listening to, the voices that you are listening to. And that's why now mentorship and coaching is at an all-time high, because you'll be surprised that the negative voices out there are more than the positive voices, right? So it is, number one, believing in yourself. Believing in yourself. You can do that through affirmations. If you know me, you know that I speak about affirmations all the time. I'm a change agent. I'm a problem solver. I was created for a time as this. I would make great things happen. I can change. And these are the things that I say to myself. So if you look at the back of this is my room, my office in my house, and what you see is you did not wake up to be mediocre. And that's what I see every morning, right? This is my room, right? So I have an office space that serves as a wardrobe and a study. And every day I look at that, you did not wake up to be mediocre. You surround yourself with the positive affirmations. Number two, you surround yourself with the right people. You surround yourself with the right people. People who are doing great things and making great things happen, right? That is very important. And then number three is that you get a coach or you get a mentor, because at times there's a gap, like I've said, between what I want to do and me actually getting it done. So you surround yourself, you get yourself a coach or a mentor, someone that has done it, right? Someone that has done it or has empowered you to do it. And you can say, okay, you know what, this is what I want to do. How do you get me across this gap? So I think those are the three things I will share for now. I hope they were helpful.
Okay. All right. Yes. Thank you so much. One more question before you go. What do you think about educators taking up leadership roles in other sectors? Now, here is an example of what I mean. I'm an educator, a leader and all of that, but then I get called up to serve, excuse me, called up to serve maybe in one ministry in government and all of that. Do you think that it might distract the person from some of the things that matter? With the whole bureaucracy and all of that, do you think it's a welcome idea to branch outside the education sector in terms of leadership?
That's an interesting question to ask, but I would answer it this way. The first thing is, everybody has different and differing visions for their life, right? And everybody's path is different. Yeah. So if you feel that you'll be of best service, right, is in another sector, then go ahead and do it. What is important is service. So I'll give you an example. I am a medical doctor. I have a master's degree in public health, right? And I came into the education sector because I thought to myself, the place where I'll be of most service and the place of my calling is in the education sector. And this doesn't mean that I do not contribute to the medical profession when I'm asked to. I do that because I have a master's in public health, right? And I can contribute to certain conversations. But my place of calling is the education sector. So I think what it is people need to decide where they are going to be of utmost service to human beings and mankind. And that is what it is at the end of the day. It has nothing to do if you're a teacher or when God was, it wasn't about, okay, youth. It's not about teacher and doctor, and it's about how do you serve mankind? How do you show love to others, right? You're talking about the Great Commission. How do you show love to others? So it is really not about those labels, or because I'm anybody, I can do anything. Today I'm a teacher, tomorrow I'm a strategist, third day I was telling my husband the other day that this 2021, I'm going to do something else. So now I'm going into branding. I'm going to take up branding as something that I know to do professionally. Then I become a brand person. And somehow the service place God wants me to be might be in the place of, branding Nigeria or branding Africa to the world. Who knows, right? So I think it's just where you are called to serve and make the best impact. That's my own thoughts about that. But brilliant question.
Okay. All right. Yes. Thank